Hi, another quick video for you on carburettor setting for the Norton Rotaries using SU carburettors. This one we're looking at the moment is for an F1 Sport, so I'll show you a little trick on the choke assembly for that at the end. But first thing we're going to do is set the jet height. So hopefully this is interesting, and I say this realistically can be used for any of the Rotaries, so Commander, Interpol and Classic, and also the F1 Sport using the SUs. Obviously with an F1 that's using the Mikunis, so that's different, but here we go. So quick and easy way to do it for you. First of all, you've got your carburettor nice and clean, all done and dusted. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that your needle is actually, the needle shoulder is absolutely parallel and dead in line with the bottom of the slide. So you've got your shoulder here, and that should be absolutely in line with the base. And the easy way of doing that is just checking it with a steel rule. And as you can see there, we've got the shoulder absolutely spot on with the bottom. So that's the first thing. Second thing we do now is we have the jet, the main needle jet in the middle. We have to make sure that that is parallel, absolutely exactly the same height as that aluminium bar you can see there. So what we're looking at is that part in the middle being at the same height as that. Again, you can do that using a metal rule. I've already preset this, or in our case we use a little fixture that we've got made up to 0, and what we can do is just check that, and you'll see it will go, it will adjust, and then it will begin to float, and that's where you're floating on the spring tension of the actual jet adjustment. So that's our 0. So we're happy with that, that's our 0. In the case of these, we're going to be adjusting for 3.2 mil, and that is the distance that the jet has to drop for the factory standard for your jet height. So we've got our 0. You then get to your jet adjustment screw, and using our dial gauge, we're down 1, 2, so 3, and just over 3 mil. There you go, and you'll see now the jet height has dropped, and that is the factory setting for your jet height. What I have got is I have a little cheat that I made myself, which I set up for 3.2 mil, and that is my primary check, and I check that I've got, that will sit flush and with no tension against it. As long as you're roughly in that ballpark, it's pretty good. They're going to need running adjustment sometimes, depending on where you are, and obviously the exhaust systems, everything like that. As long as you're around that just over 3 mil, that's not a bad base point. I think if you're stuck for any measurements, about 3¼ turns out from your 0. So if you 0 the jet height, if you turn the jet so it comes down about 3¼ to 3½ turns, you're not going to be far off anyway. But that's the way to do it. So next we move on to, this is the choke assembly on an F1 Sport. What we have, you have the same choke assembly on all the other bikes, but as you well know, that works by the rod pulling from the front, so that you've got your linkage from the front, which then opens the butterfly valves via your choke cable. On the F1 Sport, slightly different. So what we do here is we just move the spring out of the way, pop the linkage in like that, which then gives us our movement, which on an F1 Sport is up and down. You can see that lift there. I'll move my hand so you can see that lift going up, and that is worked by a choke cable which then adjusts onto there. So as you can see, as your choke comes on, that then lifts and lifts that up and down, and that's opening the butterfly valve, which in this case is on the front of the engine. So if we move across to the engine, okay, so as we were talking about, this is where the movement for that choke rod actually goes to at the front of the engine. So you can see here that upwards movement, what we saw on the arc from the choke arm, lifts that and opens and shuts the butterflies. The thing to remember here, you've got 0.12 on the bottom of the adjuster and 0.25 on the top of the adjuster. So with the spring assemblies in, you're looking 0.12 and 0.25 for your adjustment here, and that gives you your free play and the choke adjustment on lifting on those butterflies and from your throttle movement. So that's that. So remember that 0.12, 0.25 on your adjustment there for your butterflies. And again, going back to this, as long as you're around that 3 point, so where we are there, so you can see we've set 3.2, so we can go bang on 3.2 mil, and that's what we're looking at. So as long as your jet height is about 3.2 mil there, you've got your butterfly set there, and you've got your needle shoulder parallel to the base of the slide. You shouldn't be far out. So hopefully that's sort of a rough general idea of how to set up your carburetor choke and your carburetor jet height. You know, if you can get it about there, as it says in the factory book, you're roughly 3.25 to 3.5 turns out. As long as you're in the ballpark, you're checking your spark plugs and you're checking the exhaust tips for that nice colour, then hopefully that's where you need to be. You'll feel if it's wildly out, obviously. So hopefully that's useful, and I look forward to the next little how-to video next week. Thank you.